I've gotten a couple questions about, if me and my wife, when we were going through our marital situation sometimes back, a few years ago, they've asked some people and some men, some women actually too, surprise there, have asked about if there was much contact between me and my wife, when we were going through what we were going through in the middle of my stand. And we always have contact. And I've come to really understand and learn that in order to answer that question, I have to provide some perspective, so much for on my end of the spectrum. And what I mean by that is that I've learned there is a different level or separation between distance, right? Distance and contact. I believe when people use that word contact, when they ask me about what's going on in my relationship, they were saying, they're more questioning about if me and my wife ever talked to each other, or did we have any type of correspondence or anything along those lines. And the short answer is yes, we did. We had plenty of correspondence because, one, we still had a home. We still had, the girls to worry about in school, and we still had bills that needed to be paid, but also business we were trying to take care of, not only with school and work, but between us and, our separation. Hey, you guys, this is Tyree. Welcome back to another episode of Lock Pop Talks. And today I want to talk to you about the difference between contact, separation versus distance. So, in order to break this thing down, we talked about a little earlier in the intro about why contact was still something that me and my wife had no matter what happened. No matter what's going on, you still have some level of contact. And that's because, one, we felt like we were putting our girls first. So we wanted to make sure that they were good. That was kind of like one of the reasons we even stuck together for so long, and that we talked for so long, is that we were trying to do this while making sure that the girls were going to be good no matter what. My wife had her own reasons. I had my own reasons. But in the long run, we wanted the girls to be okay, which was, in hindsight, very selfish on both of our parts. And we were willing to make sense of the situation. We were trying to do whatever we could to make sense and justify what we were doing, but there was really no justification behind it. It was just something that me and her wanted to do, and we felt like the girls were old enough to handle it, and that wasn't always the truth. So let me check on this thing here. Okay, good. So then there's not so much the contact, there's the separation. And the separation was that me and her stayed in, two different rooms. I was in the attic, she was in her room, she was in our room. And some nights she would stay out late, and some nights I probably wouldn't come downstairs or something for whatever reason. But either way, I stayed gone. She stayed gone. And we needed that because there was we couldn't stand seeing each other. Like, we got to the point where, we couldn't, every time we saw each other, we were on our phones, so we can only guess what it is that we're doing on our phones, but the guessing game alone was detrimental to the both of us. So separation was something that we needed. We got to the point we couldn't even talk to each other without it diving into a big fight. And it really bothered me per se, because after a while, you start hearing words, you start slinging words, and you start taking words that they just cut right through you, man, cut right through you. And, you might be destroying that other person, or you feel need to find the deepest, darkest part of your language bank and just let them have it, let them have it. You're mad and you're tired of holding back. And I was definitely there, so I know what it's like. And it takes some level of strength and serenity to keep the nasty from entering into an already ugly fight. But it is something that, if you struggle with that, I encourage you to work on it as much as you can. Please do. The next thing I'm going to talk about is distance. Distance, not so much in the sense of, her in one place and me in another physically. What I mean by this, and you could probably follow me here, is communication, the contact, the ability to connect with one another. That distance was very real. very real. It got to the point we didn't even, when we did talk, when we came around each other, when we had some important information that we had to share with one another, if it was about the divorce or paperwork or bills or something like that. I mean, we wouldn't even look at one another. We could be right next to each other. We'd be talking and she'd be staring off in the distance and I'd be staring at the ground, and we were in total disconnect. Now, some people would say that because of the body language, you know how I talked about that before in a previous podcast, your body language tells a whole lot about yourself. Your body language tells you a whole lot about people who are upset, fed up, or cutting you off. When someone, and here's my own personal opinion, when someone feels like they're done with you, or if you are done with them, you can look them in the eye. You can say what is on your mind with weird clarity. If that even makes sense, weird clarity, as if the words you're saying aren't even, they're not even pre-rehearsed, because they're just flowing out of you so easily. But the body position is in a defensive posture that it sends a clear and present message. I don't want anything to do with you. So if you see that, please don't read any other message. That is a clear message headed your way. And if you are the one that's doing that, please understand that it is a bit of stonewalling. No matter if you want to fight for your marriage or not, you have taken on a stonewalling posture. And I do understand that it could possibly be that you have taken all you can and you're not willing to take any more, as far as pain or fear or hurtful words or hurtful actions. You have gone as far as you can and you can't take any more. So when that was happening to us, what was I doing? I was praying the entire time. Like, I would sit there, I would be in front of my wife, and we'd be talking the way that we talk, or I'm listening and she's talking, or vice versa, and I'm praying the entire time. I'm asking God, you know, please get involved with this, be here with us, because no matter what it is that we need to talk about, we have to talk no matter what. And in order to avoid a big fight, it's best that we seek you, or I seek you, and place you here with us, in the middle of us. And no matter what I want to say or what I want to do, I can talk to you and not so much her. That's what I had to do in order to keep myself under control, to keep my actions from becoming an emotional outburst. Because if I was going to be serious and call on God and work on my marriage, then I could not worry about what the individual slights I was inflicting and receiving. I couldn't keep investing in that. So if you're out there and you are upset and you're angry, it is okay to talk about or even speak on and pray about your angers and your frustration and just the pure nastiness that maybe you got welled up inside of you. You should do that, just not with your spouse, because they don't care. And it's only going to make matters worse. No amount of yelling or posturing is going to allow them to see where you're coming from. It will only happen, a restoration or breakthrough really truly happens when a person, the one who walked away or your prodigal spouse, has taken the time to step back or step down from their defensive or offensive position. Once they could do that, they can then see, okay, there's a change going on, not only within themselves, but within you as well. And then if you are serious and you're able to keep that momentum going, in a sense that it's going to change who you are as a person and going forward in your life and your marriage, you will become a more attractive spouse. When you're a more attractive spouse, the one who is upset or the one who has walked away, they may be a little apprehensive to getting back with you, but when you are a little bit more attractive, that puts you in a better position. No matter what it is that's going through, there could be another person involved, there could be children involved. You're in a better position because you have made the changes that are directly correlated to what it is that they were worried about in the first place. Now, you may want to say, Tyree, it's, she or my wife or the one who left was very selfish in the way that she did things, and she walked away and I have nothing to do with it. And I understand that. That's right. And I don't ask you to chase after anyone. Please do not chase. Okay. I'm not saying don't let them, feel like you never wanted them, or that you never loved them, or that you never wanted to be with them. But I do believe that you also have to have some type of integrity and some type of confidence about yourself that people who walk away from you are missing out on a good thing. They are missing out on a good thing, whether they see it now or not. And same thing goes for you, whether you see it now or not. That other person who's walking away in your eyes has to be seen as worth it. Someone who is worth fighting for, someone who is worth finding, I guess you want to say, a diamond in the rough, because this world has all kinds and all types of surprises and nastiness and brainwashing and man, I mean, just backsliding, temptations, distractions. I'm talking left and right. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, especially now because we can connect to the world so easily. It is up to you to make the first move. You may not feel like it, or you might be hurt, or maybe you're taking a break from your stand. But no matter what it is that you're looking for, if you're looking for better, you've got to make the first move. I don't care how it feels or how it sounds. You must make the first move, because who is responsible for your happiness besides you? You can't think of any. No one else is responsible for your happiness besides you. You have to choose your happiness. You have to choose your self-worth. And that's something that your prodigal spouse will come to learn. They think that you're the reason they're upset, that you're the reason that they can't, find it in themselves to, work on their marriage and work it out with you right now. So don't worry about changing them. Don't worry about convincing them. That's not your task. That's not your job. Your job is to be a supportive husband, a loving wife, if you will, an effective partner. That's what your task is, being an effective partner. And for some people, you're still under the same roof. And what's happening by what I mean by the distance, what goes back to distance is you might be under the same roof and might as well be two passing ships in the night. I've heard people use that before. Two passing ships in the night. What do I mean by that? That two people that have once known each other so well, like a husband and wife, are now walking by each other, having complacent conversations. Nothing has reached a level of depth. Everything is just so very top level, top soil and stuff like that. You're only asking how their day went, or what do they want for dinner? Like basic stuff like that. Or are you tired? Are you hungry? Do you want a back rub or something? Like that's basic stuff. When was the last time you had a conversation about something that was pretty deep? And for some guys, the two ships passing the night means that none of those conversations are going on, but you guys are under the same roof. You're in the same environment. I speak about that because I realized that's where me and my wife were, and thank God we're not there anymore. But it was, if it was up to me and only me, I would not have had the strength to continue a conversation to really break that chain and that cycle. I didn't have it. This was work done by both of us, but this was after me and my wife decided that we wanted a marriage and we wanted each other within that marriage. So as you can see, that's kind of where I'm going with this. There's you, there's her, there's the marriage, right? There's you, her, God, the marriage. And as long as those, it could be the trifecta, if you will, or the separate entities and whatnot in your relationship with God, your relationship with her, and then what you bring to the marriage. If you look at it like that, that's four different heads right there. It's God, it's you, it's your spouse, and it's your marriage, right? So think of that and keep that in mind as you are, conversating with her, if you happen to, or if you're not. You have to have just as much insight on the relationship if things aren't working out, if there's no real conversation, there's no real contact, or if there's a certain level of physical or emotional distance. And that's just from each other. And that means that there's something in the marriage that is not attracting your spouse. There's something in the marriage that's not attracting you. And for right now, the marriage isn't dead. It may look dead. It may be crawling. It might be on life support, but it isn't dead. It isn't dead until both parties have decided that it's not going to work out. When both parties decide it's not going to work out, I mean, even so, God works miracles too, but at that point, it takes another level of conversation. It's going to take another level of understanding and another level of coming together that will reveal itself in time. For now, you've got to not worry so much. Not worry so much about the distance, the connection, the contact. If right now what it takes is for you to continue to work on you so that you can live joyously or joyfully, if you can live joyfully, right, in God, you will be made whole. I'm telling you, you're going to be made whole. You're going to walk better. You're going to talk more confidently. You're going to sleep better. You will eat well. You will take care of your body. You will take care of your business. You will take care of your children. You'll take care of yourself. You'll take care of your job. You will take care of you. And guess what? That alone, through that pruning process or through that level of development, God is going to make you an attractive husband and an attractive partner. So when you have entered into the realm of marriage, once more, you've entered back into that realm of marriage. You are a whole and capable and fulfilling type of spouse, right? So that's pouring into a marriage, and now the marriage isn't on life support. Now it's being sustained. It's being sustained. It's being sustained. It needs help, but it's being sustained. God does not work on just you, and I'm pretty sure you listen to this podcast, you understand. I believe that I'm assuming that the listeners on this show know that God works ambiguously. He works on so many different parts, so many people at so many times, and quite possibly simultaneously, because he is God. That is what God does. Everybody gets a piece. It's not going to be, it's not his turn or her turn. It's everybody gets their piece. Everybody is in their season. Another reason you don't want to worry too much about contact and worry about distance and stuff like that is because if your spouse, and I've mentioned this before, if your spouse were to return home, and you would probably be smiling from ear to ear, but be aware that some spouses who do come back are coming back to a resentful partner. They're coming back to a home that's not necessarily inviting. They're coming back to the same problems that they left with to begin with. And sometimes it is it's possible that both parties come back into the relationship without the ability to work on the issues that drove each other away in the first place. I've seen that. And what's that called is a false start. You can connect back with your spouse, and then 3 months they decide to leave again. Now, I'm not saying it's your part or your fault or anything like that. I do say that you should take responsibility for finding a way to reconnect the marriage before things got too deep, before people jump back in the sack with one another, before you start talking about remarriage and retaking your vows and stuff like that. That time is coming. That time will come, and you and your spouse will know. But if you have experienced a false start, you know that, or maybe you understand that it comes because, one, issues aren't quite worked out. There's still a level of resentment in the relationship, that there's still something. There's a space there, whether they've let go of maybe dating another person. Maybe they still want to get out there and see what it's like. Maybe they're afraid of coming back 100% to the marriage without feeling like they're less than what they were. And man, I can't wait to talk about that with you guys too, man. How pride can kill a marriage. I don't care what you can have pride in your marriage and it will kill the marriage. I'm telling you, man, it's insane. Like, I don't mean it in a way that you'd have no, there's no hope for your marriage and stuff like that. But God has a way of taking what it is that you worship. Like, what do you worship? And if it isn't him, and if it isn't given, right? Or there's no appreciation for what it is that you have, he will snatch that thing from up under your rug. For the rug from up under your feet. Like, that's what he does. And it will happen. And not that, even if he doesn't do it, he allows it to happen, because everything that you've been afflicted with, everything that your spouse has been afflicted with, whatever journey it is that they have to take, or whatever journey it is that you are on, it is meant to bring you back to him. That's what it means. It's all meant to bring you back to him. Whether it's something that scares the life out of you and you decide, okay, I better start praying over my marriage, and I gotta pray over my home. I gotta pray. Yeah, that's right. You do. You do. Not that you forgot anything, but God is still God. He don't take no breaks because you're in a happy place. Okay? Your spouse, when they return, it will be because they've chosen to return. Nothing, anything anybody's going to say or do is going to trick them, force them, and coerce them into coming home. They're going to choose to come home, and no matter how resentful or fearful or backsliding that spouse is, they want to come home, and something's going to hold them back from giving their all to a relationship, regardless of what it is that they left for. Either it was something you did or it was something that they did. There's a reason. And you have to be ready. In the meantime, during this no contact or the separation or the distance, in the meantime, you must prepare your heart, mind, and soul for a what if, a what if your spouse doesn't feel welcome at home, or they come back and that the world, that the jungle out there has called them back. Maybe they're not ready just yet. I'm telling you, if you go back into this thing without being prepared, without having most situations considered, you run the risk of having your heart broken again. And that's something that I specifically, I don't want that for you. It truly doesn't matter what I want for you. But to be honest, if you're listening to this podcast, for my listeners, all of my listeners, I want you to experience a reconnection or a restoration or an ability to connect with your spouse on a level you haven't done it before. And I want you to do it while standing your ground. I want you to do it by having relentless faith. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. This is probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I don't know if it's the hardest thing you've ever had to do, but standing has been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because it's not about me all of a sudden. Well, it's not about like getting my spouse back or whatever. It's like, how do I stay motivated? How do I stay in the fight? How do I stay upright and proper when everything that was happening was meant and felt like it was to destroy me, even if it felt like it was personal? Like, this is personal. These actions that she's taking are so personal, like they don't even make sense. The situation is ridiculous. You got to be ready for it, and you got to be willing to deal with it. You have to be prepared as best you can. But in the meantime, lean on God. Pour all of yourself into your relationship with God, and He will block the nonsense. He will keep the ridiculousness at bay. He will allow you to build yourself up. He will build a thorn bush hedge around you, because you're not ready yet. You may not be ready. Your heart may not be ready yet. Your mind may not be ready yet. Your soul belongs to Him. So He is going to do what He needs to do to keep you with Him until it's time. And your spouse won't be able to force you to come back either. They're not going to force you back in a relationship. They're not going to force you back into their nonsense and into the fray. They're not going to come into your home, take your money, take your love, take your support, and then haul back off, and then take your heart and snap it in two. God won't even allow that, because you'll be something will remind you, like, okay, this isn't, not yet. The words you'll hear, not yet. So don't worry about making that decision necessarily for yourself, because it won't get that far. When God shuts things down, He shuts it down at the door. He shuts it down before it even gets busy. So that's having faith, and that's leaning on God. And if you feel like, well, I'm leaning too much, there's no such thing. God is much bigger than you think, and you don't need to worry about being held back too far. There's no such thing. Or you're leaning on God way too much. There's no such thing. I used to think there was, but I was wrong. There's no such thing as leaning too far on God. Be practical, be understandable, but it's not too much. There's a difference between being in contact and then experiencing distance. And sometimes, depending on how you look at it, distance isn't the problem. Contact isn't the problem. It's what you're doing when you're in close proximity. It's what you're doing when you can't talk to one another. Sometimes distance and no contact is what you need. The best tool you have on your side besides God and your devotion is time. Time feels like an enemy because of the time restraint that man put on marriage and enforces with divorce. That's all that time. If divorce had years before one could actually go through, we wouldn't even be worried about time. It's just that they expedited the situation to help people who feel like they're in dire straits in a marriage. That 1 year rule was put in place to save people who are in terrible relationships, who are in physical danger. Time is definitely on your side. So if you're in the middle of no contact, if you're in the middle of the distance in a relationship, then no matter what you feel about it, this is something that God has put on your relationship for now, because it's time to be with Him. All right, you guys, that was today's episode. If this supported or helped you in any way, please like, share, subscribe, pass it over to a friend or a family member, somebody who could use, some podcasted episodes about marriage here. I want to thank you for your listenership. I want to thank you for being here, spending time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, feedbacks, or comments, please send them to me either in an email or you can drop them down in the comments section. I read every single one of them. There's no message that I don't read, that I will not respond to, and I will check you guys out next time.